on a lush green Bodhi tree branch sitting next to an ancient temple. A small bird often perched every afternoon to watch the golden sunlight fall upon the brick courtyard. Below in the yard, an old monk was leisurely sweeping the dry leaves that had fallen after a gentle breeze. The rhythmic rustling of the bamboo broom echoed through the silent space, bringing a strange sense of peace. One day, a ripe Bodhi fruit fell right in front of the little bird. The bird happily pecked at the sweet fruit, enjoying it thoroughly, then accidentally dropped a tiny seed into a crack in the brick foundation before flapping its wings and flying into the vast sky. The bird quickly forgot about that tiny seed to continue its new journeys. As years passed, the seed lying deep beneath the brick crack silently took root, sprouted, and grew into a sturdy young Bodhi tree, spreading its shade to cover a corner of the yard. The little bird of the past was now old. Its wings, weary from the storms of the world, returned to perch on this very cool canopy to rest. The bird closed its eyes, enjoying the gentle protection, completely unaware that the refreshing shade, saving its exhausted body today, was the result of its own unintentional act of sowing a seed long ago. When the world-honored one saw this sight, he smiled gently. His teachings on the workings of the universe are incredibly simple yet profound. Every action sown, whether it is a gentle flick of a wing, an accidentally dropped seed, or even just a fleeting thought in the mind, is like making a deposit into the bank of the universe. The sower may have long forgotten, but the universe always remembers, silently nurturing that seed until the day comes to harvest sweet fruit or receive bitter results. Nothing is born out of nowhere, and nothing simply disappears. Everything is silently waiting for its maturity date. Looking down at the streams of people walking beneath high-rise buildings every day, it is easy to spot weary eyes, anxious frowns in front of phone screens, or heavy sighs in suffocating office spaces. Often, a cold message from a colleague, an unkind remark from a superior, or a baseless misunderstanding from a close friend is enough to make a long day turn gray and heavy. Feelings of resentment and the sense that life is so unfair naturally rise up strongly. The question of why one always treats others with kindness but receives only indifference in return, or why one always tries hard, yet the result is only being forgotten, repeats constantly in the mind like an alarm clock that refuses to turn off. This anxiety and fatigue do not appear by chance. Looking deeply into daily reality, it is the result of an accumulation of countless flickering thoughts, vague worries about a tomorrow that has not arrived, and regrets about a yesterday that has passed. When one is preoccupied with chasing self-imposed goals and then blames oneself when things do not go as planned, the mind naturally falls into a state of extreme stress. Much like a glass of clear water, If a drop of black ink is added every day, the entire glass will become murky after a short time. Small daily frustrations, unconscious grumbling, or simmering anger are those drops of black ink, silently clouding the inherent peace of the soul. Fatigue accumulated over a long time creates a thick fog, blurring the mind's ability to observe with clarity. When encountering adversity, the natural reaction is often to resent fate and curse life for being so unfair. Seeing a selfish person who seeks every way to gather benefits for themselves, yet still lives a prosperous and wealthy life, the heart easily breeds doubt about justice. Seeing a kind person who works hard year-round and is always ready to help others, but continuously meets with disaster and illness, one secretly thinks that the law of karma is perhaps just empty words of consolation. That doubt actually stems from a limited vision, constrained by the short span of a single human life. Human memory is too short, and it can only remember things that happened yesterday, the day before, or at most a few decades in this lifetime. This is like a person who reads exactly one page in the middle of a 1,000-page book and then hastily judges the entire plot as nonsensical and unjust. But this vast universe does not operate based on short-term memory or the emotional judgments of humans. Buddhism uses the concept of manifestation of past karma to thoroughly explain the seemingly irrational events that occur daily. Past karma refers to the deeds, words, and thoughts from many past lives that one has completely forgotten. Manifestation or attraction is the natural drawing together of causes and effects when the right conditions are met. The pain, betrayal, or feeling of abandonment in the present is not a malicious joke of fate, but rather the maturity of old debts from the karma bank that one must bear oneself. Perhaps in this life, you are a very faithful person who always cherishes relationships. Yet you are heartlessly betrayed by your partner. That pain leaves you broken-hearted and full of unending resentment. However, if you could look through the long flow of time, who knows, perhaps, in some ancient lifetime, you were the one who turned your back and walked away, ignoring the choked tears of someone who trusted you with all their heart. When the sweet fruit or the bitter fruit is ripe, it naturally falls right onto the head of the one who planted it, not off by an inch and not swaying by a hair's breadth. In addition, Taoist philosophy has a very wise saying about the operation of the universe, stating that the net of heaven is vast, and though its meshes are wide, it misses nothing. The universe does not need surveillance, cameras, or ledgers written in ink. Natural laws operate objectively, coldly, and with absolute fairness, just like gravity. When someone trips and falls from a height, their body will hit the ground, regardless of whether that person is a great figure or an ordinary soul. Gravity shows no favoritism. and the law of karma is the same. A single thought that just arises in the mind, even if it has not been spoken or acted upon, creates a vibration in space. That vibrations will spread and sooner or later return to its point of origin. Therefore, the fact that an evil person still prospers is because the merit accumulated from their good deeds in previous lives is still very large, like a bank account with a massive balance. Even if that person only spends wastefully every day without depositing more, the account cannot be depleted immediately. Conversely, a good person who still suffers much hardship is because they are paying off the remaining old debts piled up from before. When old debts are not yet paid, new merit, though currently sprouting, has not had enough time to flower and bear fruit. To better understand how this law operates and how to transform pain into awakening, let us go back in time to an ancient period in a prosperous kingdom. There lived a prince named Ajatashatru. Stirred by the instigation of an evil person, his greed for power and jealousy clouded his reason, leading the prince to commit a heinous crime. He imprisoned and starved his own biological father, King Bimbisara, to death in order to seize the throne. During those dark days, the father king was locked in a deep, dark dungeon without food or water. Only Queen Vaidehi, out of love for her husband, thought of a way to help. She bathed herself clean and applied a layer of honey flower, paste all over her body, hiding water in her jewelry to bring into the prison for the king. Thanks to that layer of honey, King Bimbisara maintained his life day by day. Every day, the father king still leisurely practiced walking meditation in the dark prison, turning his eyes toward the mountain where the world-honored one resided to prostrate with sincerity and purity. When he discovered this, Prince Ajatashatru was furious. He ordered the queen to be banned from visiting and commanded the jailer to slash the soles of the king's feet and rub salt into them so that the king could no longer practice walking meditation. Eventually, King Bimbisara passed away in extreme hunger and pain right there in the dark dungeon. Ironically, on the very day the father king passed away, the queen gave birth to a precious son for King Ajatashatru. As he held the soft little child in his arms, for the first time in his life, King Ajatashatru felt a sacred and profound love between parent and child that moved him to tears. He immediately ran to ask Queen Vaidehi if when he was little, his father had loved him as much as this. The queen burst into tears and recounted how, when he was a child, he once had a very large and painful boil on his finger that made him cry day and night without sleep. Because he loved him so much, his father, King Bimbisara, held him in his arms and took his painful finger into his mouth so that the warmth of his breath could soothe the pain. When the boil burst, pus and blood filled his mouth. Fearing that his son would be startled awake and feel pain. The father swallowed that blood and pus into his own body. Hearing that, Ajatashatru felt as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. Overwhelming regret and pain crashed down, completely collapsing the arrogance of the new king. He rushed to the dark dungeon to release his father, but it was all too late. His father had breathed his last. After ascending the throne, standing at the peak of power and fame, possessing all the fine silks and the obedience of 10,000 people, King Ajatashatru thought he had everything. However, the fair law of the universe spares no one. Immediate retribution quickly arrived. Festering, stinking boils began to break out all over the king's body, leaking pus and causing excruciating pain. No royal physician in the country could treat them. No divine medicine could soothe the physical agony he faced every night. Even more terrifying than the physical pain was the mental torment. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the kind yet pained face of his father. Regret, guilt, and ultimate fear besieged his mind, causing him to panic, lose sleep and appetite, and live in a hell on earth while still breathing. At this moment, the golden jeweled crown and the magnificent throne became meaningless. However, in the very depths of that pain and dead end, a miracle occurred. Instead of blaming heaven and earth, instead of continuing to use violence to cover his fear, the severe illness and the torment of his heart awakened the king's dormant conscience. He realized that all this terrible suffering was the immediate retribution caused by his own crimes. His arrogance collapsed, giving way to sincere repentance. Guided by a wise royal physician, King Ajatashatru sought out the temple of the world-honored one. When facing the enlightened one, the king did not pray for the Buddha to use supernatural powers to erase the boils or banish the physical pain. He simply fell to his knees, sincerely repenting for all the hideous mistakes he had committed against his parents. The Buddha, with boundless compassion, accepted that repentance, explaining to the king the nature of karma and the path to rebuilding his life. Thanks to the profound awakening born from his own ultimate pain, King Ajatashatru completely reformed his ways. He spent the rest of his life correcting his mistakes, ruling the country with love and justice, and becoming a great protector of Buddhism. After the Buddha entered Nirvana, it was King Ajatashatru who provided the financial sponsorship and security for the first Buddhist council, helping to preserve the precious teachings of the world-honored one for future generations. His story is a powerful testament that pain is not for punishment, but is a great opportunity for the soul to awaken and turn back. When one understands the story of King Ajatashatru, their perspective on the adversities of daily life changes completely. The philosophy of transforming karma into the path points out that suffering and trials do not come to bury humans in the mud of despair. They play the role of a strict teacher, using painful lashes to awaken a mind that is preoccupied with chasing frivolous external illusions. When facing betrayal, instead of pouring all one's energy into resentment and cursing the person who treated them poorly, stopping for a moment to ask oneself what they are being reminded of will bring a miraculous relief. Perhaps this event is a reminder of a time when one undervalued the trust of others in the past. Or simply, it is a wake-up call to realize that placing one's entire happiness in the hands of another person is a risky choice. When this is understood, resentment naturally dissolves, giving way to understanding and tolerance. Karma never forgets anyone, and it is simply waiting for the right moment to appear. When encountering unpleasant things, accepting them as an old debt that has now come due will help the mindset become much more tranquil. Instead of struggling, resisting, and asking why this happened to you, silently accepting it, smiling, and paying off that remaining debt is the only way to end the cycle of suffering. To apply this to a busy daily life, one does not need to do anything too grand or heroic. Whenever the mind feels stressed by mounting pressures, temporarily putting the phone aside, stepping out onto the balcony to look at a green branch, or simply focusing on drinking a full glass of warm water in silence will help a great deal. Breathing in deeply, feeling the cool air enter the chest, and then breathing out very slowly to let go of worries for a tomorrow that has not arrived. That is the moment the mind returns to its inherent peace. This life is inherently very fair. When one stops demanding that the world around them revolve according to their wishes and knows how to bow before the natural laws of the universe, all external storms will naturally transform into refreshing rain, nourishing the seeds of peace within the soul to bloom.